So whichever, yeah, just throw a few things out, see what you've come up with.
On already.
Yeah.
We figured out it's maybe a bit of a trick question.
It was. It was.
I think we all seem to agree. The first one, I think maybe felt like it was an ATM at some point, but it was well ingrained into her by the time she was videoing herself. Just because of her speed, the fluidity, because she knew what she was doing. She obviously learned it. So possibly the end of an ATM. Second.
So can I just?
Yep.
So I'm just going to repeat that. So you were looking at speed and fluidity as an indicator of I know it, rather than.
Yes, she'd already learned it.
Right.
It's not like she had the halfway already. Yeah, there wasn't. You didn't have to pause.
Okay.
The speed that she was going.
Okay, so you really picked out. You really focused in on the timing element.
Yeah. Do I go on to the?
Yeah, sure.
Yep. The guy was learning. That looked more like, to me anyway, it looked a little bit more like midway through an ATM. He'd learned it a bit, but you could see he had to question what direction it was going as he was rolling over the second time. Yeah, it wasn't quite so ingrained, but yeah, he questioning what he was doing.
May I just hop in again?
Yep.
So you just had a great phrase there. You could see he was questioning.
Yep.
That's exactly what we're looking at. How do you see that? How do you recognize that? Was it a timing thing again? Yeah.
Yeah, especially, well, for me, I just really noticed one of his legs. He was like, not that way. Or, yep, not that way. And then, well, with all his limbs, I suppose, but one pulled out a bit more. The third lady, same again. I think she's done ATMs before, but she was just moving for the sake of moving. Because she was very fluid about what she was doing, but she wasn't exactly. She was exploring a bit, but not quite very much. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah. So she looked like she was limbering up at the beginning, and then she went on and did something. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we're not after actually any definitive answers. This is the beginning. As I said, this is the beginning of something that you'll be asking yourself throughout, not just this year, but in your ATM practice. How you recognize when the person's on the floor, engaged in, you understand the ATM. Yes.
We discussed the first case. We can arrive to the others.
Or number one. Yeah.
The number one. Yeah. I told to them that I know this is a professional performing
Person.
a lesson or movement for the purpose is to perform that. But behind that are hours and hours and hours of practice. And the thing that I observed is how she used the push against the gravity and how this pushing moved her body in a fluent way. And also how she used the head, leading the movement. And one of the things you said, and how all her body were engaged in that. Because she was doing this small movement, and then she was engaged in other parts.
So you really focused in on the movement of the body and the movement of the body in relationship to the ground and other parts.
Yes.
Okay. And you're looking for that as an indicator that they were somehow engaging.
Yes. But I begin to share with my okay. But I know her, and I have some basic information. I know her. I know how his name. I saw that video and before.
Yeah.
And it's conditioned.
Yeah. Okay. Someone else.
In the first one, we, like Kelsey's group, we thought the fluidity and the way she moved and the speed of movement, we couldn't, it seemed to not indicate any exploration. Whereas in the third one, we thought, even though there was still speed and fluidity there, somehow it looked more like an exploration, whereas number one looked more like a performance, designed performance.
You notice we spoke about the pauses in the number one video. She swings her legs over to the left and she stops in midair and comes back, and there's no moment when she fully relaxes and then thinks to herself, oh, I'll reverse that movement. If that's what made it look, it was the pause that made it look choreographed. Whereas in the last one, it was similar in elegance and style and fluidity and speed, but in the last one, there was something about how her head naturally rolled from side to side that appeared to come from, oh, that's how my body wants to move, rather than that's the choreography I've been given to perform. The middle one, I thought, was the most clearly an ATM, because you couldn't possibly balance those things if you weren't fully aware of what you were doing. And he was visibly thinking about every single millimetre of movement in order not to drop the objects.
For the task itself.
The task itself and the hesitancy, and there was something about the movement of his body that gave away that he was concentrating on it.
Okay. Okay, good. Great observations. It's great. There you go.
We were discussing, and we didn't have any great degree of necessary agreement, but with the second one,
That's good. That's
with the
a
second
good
one,
thing.
though, we were the most uncertain, I think, whether it was an ATM or not, because I guess the question we asked is any movement with awareness, like a circus performer, say, an ATM. Like if you're learning how to be an acrobat in a circus, you have to be very aware of how you're moving, but the goal is to balance a ball on your nose. Does that qualify as an ATM if all your awareness is about, in the end, what I want to do is balance the ball on my nose, not necessarily learn how I might adopt a different way of moving in general to move more easily in everyday life. So that was one distinction we thought about with that second one that made us the least confident that it was an ATM. Wasn't a lot else.
You know, in the cinema, you have when they have the categorization of the movies, you have the action movies, and then you have the fantasy movies and the drama movies, and then you have and when you go to the art house movies, you have to sit there a long time. Now, if someone was to produce an awareness to movement video, it would be very much like generally an art house movie, right?
Well, none of them were complete ATMs. They were just portions of. So the main thing that we sort of
thing to do was to look at the principles of things like timing, fluidity, ease, awareness, attention, pauses, those kind of things, to try to kind of go, well, and all of them had some elements of an ATM in them, of those principles, without any of them being complete ATMs. So we basically went, I think we kind of more or less sort of come to some consensus. The first one being a yes/no, the second one being a yes, and the third one being a no, yes, no.
That's beautifully complex. I like it.
So yeah, we were very
yes,
clear.
No,
we
yes,
were very clear.
yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes.
But awareness, I think, was probably the thing we were looking at. You know, are they doing it with thought, with you know, pausing to reflect, to integrate the various bits, or how it's, and all of them had little elements of those things, but none of them were completely all of the principles in that.
So just before you pass on the mic again, so what I'm hearing from all of you is that you are identifying particular features that you're looking for: awareness, knowing what you're doing, making errors and then switching your intention, sensing the relationship between the two. Yeah, you're actually looking for exactly what's needed in HM, and then you're correlating it to what is visibly there. That's great. That's exactly right.
Because we understand that performing from YouTube videos and maybe don't let all the time needed to see how they arrive to that.
Yeah.
We were thinking, and this kind of movement can do maybe another person who never did an ATM, maybe a dancer who perform a routine and going through with the 7-day method. You can perform a routine like that using the first case, and not necessarily with the 7-day method, or have ATM present before. But copying what the teacher said, okay, now you do that, and then you perform a nice movement.
So just
and so maybe there's the fact that we don't have the information of observing how they cope with the sequence, with starting off with the constituents of the final movement. We mostly see what could be a final movement, the final movements, and so really we actually don't have, that's a big part of the information that's missing for us to, as observers.
So as an ATM teacher, that won't be the case. You'll watch them from the beginning to the end. Yeah. So yes, I totally agree. You're a little bit set up. However, there's something else that's coming up that I'm recognizing. When you listen to recordings of Moshe Kolnikov's teaching this lesson, you can't help but every now and then hear his agitation. And usually the agitation is around two particular things: stop achieving, and the other one is you could do that when you walk into the room. I'm not interested in seeing you do it. In other words, it's not really about me. In a funny, It's actually not funny. It's taken me 25 years to realize this. The movement that he's talking about are the ATM movements. The lessons, the ATM practice that Feldenkrais wants us, me and you, all of us, to engage in is not about the movements. It's what's inside the movements. Now, all of you, I have absolutely no doubt, recognize internally, inside yourself, when you're doing ATM, when you're really in the process and totally engaged, and when you're kind of yes, no, and when you're totally no. So something, you can all do that with yourself in the process of an ATM, and it's very rarely is it consistent all the way through, but it's always yes, 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 yes. Yes, and then it's no, and then it's yes, 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 and then no, yes, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, no, yes. And when you have a really good day, you know those days that you have absolutely fantastic best practice, you have it's amazing. So you all know what ATM is from a personal experiential perspective in yourself. And this scenario that I set up here is starting to bring out, well, how do I recognize this that I know in here out there? It's the essence of something, yeah? And that is the inquiry. What is it that you see? Because we can recognize, sorry, there are things that you can recognize that you won't necessarily be able to act for, and yet you still see them. In the process over the next couple of years, those things will gradually come more and more and more up. You'll be able to articulate what I know here and what I can see out there. And you've already started that. From what I've heard, you can already start to identify, which is fantastic. Yeah? Because anybody could watch you doing an awareness to movement, who's a really good mover, and go, yep, and they are doing it. So there's a little bit of a difference between being able to demonstrate ATM movements and being engaged in ATM practice. They're not the same animal. That's not to say that you won't get any benefits from doing all the variations. You might, but it's not the same beastie. Quite different. So before we wrap up, any other observations? Yeah, all go for the camera, right? So yes. So it's pre-digested. The last person, by the way, in case you want to know it, is Ruthie Alon. That's one of the head honchos. It's from her video, Movements in Nature Men. And of course, she's got a voiceover where she's describing to people what to look for, what she's thinking as she's doing. You see, now that would be a very good video. Doing the lesson and then externalizing through language what it is, the process that you're going for. The microphone is coming.
Hi, Mia. So yeah, is there a bit of a like symbiotic relationship between the actual exploration and using all those principles to, you know, really engage in the movement, to actually just being able to master the movement and do it with that fluidity that some of those people show, and just get off on that beautiful feeling of the pleasure of the movement that then sparks your curiosity more. Like it's like a bit of a loop. It's not like you just do the curiosity bit with no, you know, like part of the I don't know, learning is to get to that, for me anyway, to get to that feeling of pleasure and wow, this is just so fluid, and I know all the constituent parts and I can put it together. Like the integration maybe of it or something. And then that leads to more curiosity about, well, how can I make it, there's that little spot that isn't quite as fluid as, I don't know, that's just, so I think, is that a point?
There's a question in there somewhere.
Is there a question in there? It's just like, is it a symbiotic, like, can you?
Yes, of course it is. Of course it is. So, you know how I wrote up on board, as teachers, we invite people. And part of that invitation is, how do you stimulate their curiosity? How do you engage them enough to just get them so interested in themselves that they go into that flow that we're describing? And then that flow becomes self-feeding, if you like.
So you're looking for their engagement in it, and are they really not just doing the movement, but engaged in the thinking of the actual way that movement's happening within them?
Because when curiosity is bubbling, learning is inevitable. It really is. So one of our job descriptions is a curiosity provocateur, an engagement provocateur, an interest provocateur. How do you get interested? How do you get me interested in me?
And I know with kids, oftentimes having the movement fluid like that is kind of almost more important to do early on and then unpack it rather than do all the parts and then put it together. It's like too slow for some people.
I totally agree with you. And the thought that comes then into the back of my mind is everybody's different.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And different ages are different. And, Okay, thank you.
Quick comment. And this is a little bit what we were talking about, just where are the edges of an ATM. So because I remember once telling a teacher who I was doing some ATMs with that I incredibly mindlessly do Pilates, and I've just do it on total autopilot and chat to everybody around me. It's really fun, but it's not very helpful. And she said, well, you can take the same principles from these lessons of just going in and really doing that inner stuff. So it's not just the movements, but it's where you are in your head while you're doing the movements. So not using that as an example because obviously that's Pilates with overlaid, but with these other things that we're seeing up there, if they are involved in their minds, with that extra element of, and that's where the learning's happening. Is that then an ATM, or is the ATM and the magic combo of being in a room with a teacher who's trained and has a trademark next to the ATM? So that was the fuzzy edges. Like, is it an intention thing that makes it an ATM, or what?
It's a combo deal.
Yeah.
That doesn't always necessarily involve a teacher, but it's a combo deal.
I said something a little while ago. We've moved on, but I do some ATMs with a friend occasionally. And you're saying that curiosity is the basis for, I think, exploration or play. Yeah, those things. And I just find, okay, I'm not doing this right, because when I stop saying, let's try to do this, or do that, whatever, now just play with it a little bit, just kind of stop. And, okay, there's no exploration happening there. And so you might have an intention, but it's how you do it, how you solve those problems when it arises would be where I see growth. Yes. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
How you manage it.
Discontinuities. Yeah. And this is what I said earlier, very sloppily about body parts. When you say someone, okay, well, lift your leg, and they lift it in a way that they've always lifted the leg. So the comment comes back, look, how many times in your life have you lifted your leg? When you came into this room, you could lift your leg. When you go out of this room, you can lift your leg. What's the big deal? You can lift your leg. So what are you adding to it? Well, you're adding your interest.
That's hard. hard sometimes to get people to think outside that always.
Yeah,
This,
welcome.
I am doing it. Yeah.
That's it. So they're the skills.
Well, I've got the microphone.
Apologies.
No. So the first, Sylvia, you knew the first person. So was that an ATM or not? Yeah, that you were the first one that we were watching with videos. Not necessarily for you. Was she doing?
And then she was interested in the man in the middle and whether that was Sylvia or not. I can. Yeah, I can. No problem.
I agree with
Helen.
Doris said that noticing that he is aware about anything in the movement he's doing, and for me that's an NPM, or he's performing an NPM. And another thing is it's a video to communicate. Maybe even the velocity is not real. When we're real and it's real like that, maybe they put a little forward.
No.
I'm not sure.
So to answer this question, what we'll do in a moment, because I don't want to cut this off, but I think what we might do is we'll finish this discussion, have a break, and then we'll come back. After the break, you'll get to observe your colleague doing an awareness through reflection in what they consider to be best practice. Yeah, how do you perform under pressure? Okay.
Can I ask a last question? You said when the curiosity is bubbling.
Yeah, bubbling.
Learning is
inevitable.
Inevitable.
So, but please, let's keep the discussion.
I've just read a book, and it's called Before Sleep. And it's about a woman who loses her memory of each day. And each morning she has to be reminded of who she is and the relationship she has. And so during the day, she is encouraged by a neuroplastician that she should keep a journal so that she can, and he has to phone her each day to remind her where she has hidden this journal so she can reconstruct herself each day. And my thought was, in watching all of those, having recently finished the book, my thought at the end of reading the book was, if this is the approach I could have each time I had to do an ATM, then I would discover something new in each ATM, and it wouldn't look practiced and researched, because that idea of knowing what the end is on the repetition, it gets to that kind of wonderful flow that you see in those, but it's that process of investigation of putting together who you are and discovering something new about yourself each day, and then remembering it. Or in the case of this one, is trying to find each time you do something, you repeat something, is what is it that we store in the back of our brain that is not remembered, that becomes part of the other.
Guys, so that's really nice. And that deserves a story in which I've listened to most of the audio recordings of the Feldenkrais ATM workshops and whatever. And when you listen to those recordings, every now and then he gets to the essence of what you're talking about. And he says it something like this. He says, at the end of the lesson, you get up, you stand up, and you feel wonderful. You feel light, and you feel full, you feel more present, you feel more expansive. And it sounds like that's going to be a wrap. And then he says in various kinds of ways, he then says to people, that which you experience at the end of a lesson is trivial compared to what this method offers you through the practice of awareness. And you're starting to actually haven't scratched the top. You've actually opened it. So there's something about doing awareness through movement and the skills that you learn in doing awareness through movement that puts you into a personal relationship with yourself that you can get through other approaches, but in this approach, it's done through movement. And if you think about the simplest things, and that's where we're going to start actually, with the scanning. The scanning is the simplest thing. You lie on the floor, and then someone asks you, notice your right heel, how it lies on the floor. Notice your left heel, how it lies on the floor. Sense the difference. Now, the difference is actually not in the sensation of the heel. It's in your generation. You generate that difference. That's an activity that you do inside yourself. It's constructive, it's creative, it's generative, you can call it whatever you like, but it's something that appears in you. You create this new perception, you create this new information inside yourself by comparison. And that's just you in relationship to the floor. And then there's movement in relationship to movement. So you can see, if you keep on doing that, what starts to happen is you start to develop, I'm going to use jargon, a different self-image, whatever self-image means by that. But the word that came to mind is you start to have a different incorporated sense of yourself. I'm playing on the word, incorporated. In Latin, the word corpora means body, the flesh of the body. You start to have a new incorporation because new information is present. And whether you're necessarily conscious of it or not conscious of it for a moment, it kind of is like swirling and swinging through you, and you have a different sense of yourself. So where does that power come from? From inquiry and comparison. You could choose any influence you like. It's just that the guy was an engineer, and he thought, I might as well put something together that might be useful for you. And this is my last comment before I answer your question. Feldenkrais was absolutely adamant that the improvements in motion that you get from doing the lessons are a reward for your intention. They're just a reward. It's like, oh, you ordered the main meal? Oh, you get a side salad. What's the main meal? That's what we want to know. And you all know through your own practice, you already know what the main meal is. And that's why it is so difficult to represent awareness through movement in a visual medium. It's not a visual medium thing, it's a book thing. If you put text with words that's evocative and they've added some cinematic effects, journalized it, wow, that would be strong. But that's not your 10-second video grab or 30-second video grab on YouTube. So, Julie, the answer to your question is, the movements that he's doing are movements from an awareness to movement. The guy. I said he, yep. They are a certain set of movements that are from an awareness to movement lessons that I've just done downstairs. Thank you. Oh, no, it's a couple of minutes done. No, so they're all awareness to movement lessons. So notice that there's this kind of really ambiguous relationship. You can see my hand. there's this ambiguous relationship between awareness through movements and the practice of awareness and movement. You could just take the practice, and every time, like some of you said, it could be, oh, now I need to do something. Oh, yes, my right hip joint hurts. Oh, yeah, but that's not an awareness of movement. I haven't done any of the motion. So that skill that you learn is then transferable to any activity, physical or otherwise, in your life. Full stop. It's just that we have a whole repertoire of 550 lessons of various kinds and whatever that do have a form and they do have a design, they do have a composition. And when you get to know the composition, you can then assist the person to explore things that might be missing in their general everyday activity. But it doesn't matter which lesson you choose out of the 550. The practice and the process is all. I think you've heard me say it, you've heard Susan say it, you've heard Jenny say it. Process is constant. The movement's there. But anything else before we break?
Yeah, just some greetings from people who aren't here. Some of you will have heard that Mia had a fall a week or so back, and she now has a new hip. So we will send her a card and our best wishes. Loretta is unable to be here this segment. She sent her best wishes and greetings to you all. Hopefully she'll be back next segment. And likewise, Lockie also was challenged getting away from work. He may be here for some days, but he sent his greetings to you as well.
But please have a break. We'll come back at